Was Meghan Markle's worst mistake actually marrying Prince Harry? The couple is celebrating their 6-year wedding anniversary today. And as time goes on, and especially with the resurgence of suits, I can't help but think sometimes, would Meghan technically be somewhat better off if she didn't marry Harry? Now, obviously, the two have two wonderful children, and obviously, that is something to celebrate as well. But when you think about Meghan and her relentless ambition to be as famous as humanly possible, she's achieved that for sure. But at the same time, the cost might be much more than she originally anticipated. Because as I look at Meghan and what's happened to her and all the things that have sort of collapsed underneath her, I just can't help but think right now, especially again, like I said, with people so interested in suits and suits having this huge resurgence on Netflix, I think her futures in Hollywood would actually be so much better if she had never married Harry. And in honor of their 6-year wedding anniversary, I'm going to give you 6 reasons why that is. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary about all the latest news, sometimes the drama going on behind the scenes. So if you want to smash that subscribe button, that would be absolutely fantastic. I would love and enjoy to have you back. We talk about so many things related to royals. Not only do we talk a lot about Harry and Meghan, but I also have the Crown Report where I go over news from all the royals across Europe. And I'm really, really excited because I did one version. It didn't turn out too well. So I'm actually redoing it and hopefully getting out on Monday. There's just so much royal news, some amazing state visits, and everything to talk about. So I can't wait to share that with you guys. Oh, so soon. And just to let you guys know as well, I do have a sponsorship deal with Ana Lucia Diamonds here. So I'm wearing my diamond studs, which I love, which I guess when I thought about it and realized Meghan Markle wore diamond studs for her wedding, mine are much cheaper, thankfully. And so is Ana Lucia. They're all lab created diamonds. I got a necklace right here. And probably my favorite piece, guys, I got to tell you right now, is my tennis bracelet. Every time the sun hits it and I just see it sparkle, I just fall in love all over again with it. So, guys, if you are interested, feel free to click the link up above. And if you use code ROYAL20, you shall save 20%. Okay, guys. So I've been thinking about this video for so long. And as I was thinking today, I was actually going to do the video on something else. But when I thought about it being their anniversary and how long I had been thinking about this video, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time. Now, I want to offer a caveat before we start this video, which is, of course, the Harry and Meghan's children. It is great that they are here. I think they love them. I think taking nothing against their children, their lives, their marriage, anything like that. But what I'm really focusing on is I think Meghan Markle's really, really critical reason for marrying Harry. It wasn't necessarily for Harry. Meghan Markle, if you look throughout her career, she has always strived to be famous, recognized, and to be somebody who's influential. And you see this through her arranged paparazzi strolls when nobody cared who she was. You see it through her relentless pursuit of PR via Sunshine Sachs. Now, of course, every actor needs a PR representative. But what you see throughout Meghan is that she's throwing tons of money at Sunshine Sachs to promote her. And at the same time, she's not really doing that much. She's not the star of Suits. She probably won't be the star of Suits. She doesn't really have that much of a profile. And so it was artificially boosting her into trying to get to the mainstream. But I've watched Hollywood closely for years, and I had never, ever heard of Meghan Markle until she started dating Harry. In fact, my first thought when I saw her, and I will say right now, I think I was 100% correct in my assertion at the time. Every action she's made since then has proved my initial impression is that I thought the story at first was something that she sort of concocted. So she was a low tier actress, which I noticed. And I thought, okay, so I guess what she could have done and maybe did is because she had this small association with Harry one time. She's so desperate. She just screams to me desperate D-list actress that she concocted a whole story about dating him in order to promote herself. That was my initial impression. And so when they were actually dating, I was really surprised because like, how in the world did this woman on an average TV show, there's nothing special about Suits. It's just kind of indulgent fun, you could say, end up with the son of the King of England. It didn't make a ton of sense to me. And honestly, to some certain extent, it still doesn't. But It was the result of Meghan Markle's relentless self pursuit, social climbing, all those sorts of things ended up with Harry. So you could say in many ways and she could give an excellent class on social climbing, utilizing connections, hustling, networking. I think she could give some excellent classes on that. But that is where she should have ended it. She should have dated Harry for a while, dumped him, and then moved on to something else, because the worst mistake she has made, if you just look at her as this woman in relentless pursuit of ambition, fame, and fortune, was actually marrying Harry, because that was the thing that killed so much of her dreams in so many ways. And why she continues to sort of fail now in their Hollywood chase. Because again, if you look at the whole picture, they've had some pretty dismal failures. I mean, they're on the line to lose millions. They've already lost millions. They've lost millions from Spotify, potentially millions upon millions from Netflix, all because Meghan Markle did many, many things wrong. And of course, it started off with marrying Harry. But here's reason number one why I think she has utterly failed and why this was perhaps one of the worst mistakes she ever made, was because, especially in the reality TV show, they overblow their love so much. Like historic Romeo and Juliet love is just so overblown. Seems a little fake, because let's be honest, Prince Harry, yes, he is a prince, but Meghan Markle was not a waitress at, let's say, the Pizza Express or something in London that Harry happened to go in one night. They started chatting, they connected, and they were from very, very different social statuses. No, no, no. Meghan Markle was an actress. She was mingling in some of those upper echelon English circles, hanging out with Millie McIntosh from Made in Chelsea, who she promptly dumped as soon as she got into a higher social sphere. And so many things where she was moving in these circles that really were her circles. So it's not like she jumped catastrophic social divides here. They were in relatively the same space. And when you think about the racial aspects of it, Meghan Markle is not the first mixed race woman to marry into a royal family, nor into the British aristocracy. Of course, we have Emma, the Marchioness of Bath. She is actually half Nigerian. And so she obviously had married her husband way before Harry and Meghan. They have 3 children now. She is definitely well beloved on the English social scene. Very much for sure. She's actually going to be Tatler's new social reporter. So when she goes to parties, she's going to be basically paid to go to parties and exclusive clubs and report on those to Tatler. So you can't think of a better job than that. She also is stunning. She looks amazing. She has an incredible sense of fashion. So Meghan Markle is not really breaking any ground there. And what about royalty? Of course, who many people don't talk about is Princess Angela of Liechtenstein. She was born in Panama, raised in the United States. She is the first woman of predominantly African descent to marry into any royal family. And she did that, oh, wait, in 2000, 18 years before Meghan Markle. And in many ways, Meghan Markle is not breaking ground. And what I've always thought as well is I thought it was incredibly disingenuous to go, oh, this would never happen. It didn't happen until Meghan made it happen, is sort of how they spin this in some ways. Or that it was impossible until Meghan broke the mold. I'm sorry, but I never thought it was impossible for any woman of mixed race to marry into the British royal family. I think they are very well accepting overall. You just have to obviously, it takes a while to ingratiate yourself into the family, because they all have their guards up, because they know people utilize them in order to get themselves ahead. So of course they're going to be a little bit guarded. But I think you see in many instances that the British royal family is very warm together, because they're the only ones who really know what it's like to be royal at that level. Even other royals in Sweden, Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands, they can't totally understand what it's like to be a member of the British royal family, because this is a whole upper echelon above what they experience. They experience it on a much smaller level in their countries. Because, I mean, even in, let's say, Sweden, not all the time does Getty Images goes and follows a royal on an event. Sometimes I can't even find pictures except for on foreign sites, because so few people from more of the English-based sites actually go follow the royals on engagement. So the footprint of the British is just so much more. But again, I didn't think race had any sort of barrier to marrying into the royal family, because again, I think they are very, very warm at their core. Once you ingratiate yourself into the family, which will take some time, it takes some time to grow that trust. But I think Most people can do it. But getting back to this initial idea, listen to a little bit of what Harry and Meghan say in their documentary.
Great love story. And the craziest thing is that I think this love story is only just getting started. You know, she sacrificed everything that she ever knew, the freedom that she had, to join me in my world.
They had the most epic love story in the history of mankind. And I think when you overblow something to such an extent, it comes across at the end of the day as rather fake. Because interestingly enough, my great aunt and uncle this month are celebrating their 80th. That is right, 80 wedding anniversary. They were married in 1944. Think about that. They're both in their late 90s now. They struggle a lot every day, just getting up and doing things that people do at that age, but they are still together. To me, that's a really, really big love story because few people make it to such a huge milestone. Obviously, sometimes people die and everything, but I think that's something to celebrate in their love story. Harry and Meghan's love story, it becomes so like fairy tale-ish. It becomes farcical. And because of that, I think it's just less engaging. And Harry and Meghan have set themselves up for impossible standards because what if they don't make it? What if they don't make it? We've already had some reports from the Telegraph and stuff that said basically that the couple are sort of kind of living separate lives sometimes. Harry has a hotel room somewhere in Montecito that he goes to every once in a while when he needs a break. So it's like, how much are we supposed to believe this love story? And when you consider everything that's happened within the British royal family, I just think sometimes making too much of a fuss of something can end up being a disaster because at some point people just don't quite believe it. And I think that's definitely going to happen with Harry and Meghan. And although obviously they fell in love, if they end up falling out of love, I just wonder what they'll say about their love then. And so this one's sort of a twofer. So the first part of it is, I think, faking that they actually wanted to be working royals, especially Meghan, and then Meghan utilizing the royal machine for her own PR promotion and then getting mad when things don't go her way. Because here's the truth about being a royal. There are rules and expectations that you must follow, like any other job. And Meghan Markle, unfortunately, she married in knowing that, I mean, there's an order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that Harry at the time was sixth in line to the throne. He was never going to be king. He was never going to have as prominent a role as his brother. She was never going to be as prominent as her sister-in-law. And so in the level of the hierarchy, Harry and Meghan knew you couldn't have your way. I think sometimes what happened, especially with Meghan in the lead up to their wedding, sort of the biggest moment for somebody marrying in if they're not the heir is probably going to be their wedding and the birth of their children. Because after that point, your importance will start to slowly diminish over time as the children of the heir grow older. This, again, is an eternal truth of all monarchies except for the Middle Eastern ones, which tend to go more with favoritism. And so it's just a different system. Like Saudi Arabia, they have literally gone through every son of the initial king who died in like the 1950s or something. They've literally gone through all the sons. And people take some time. They actually won't get to all of them because the crown prince, Mohammed bin Salam, will be the next king. So he will actually be the first of the second generation. I think the previous king has been dead for well over 50 years. So this gives you somewhat an idea of how the Middle Eastern countries are different. But in the European systems, it's a hierarchy. And as time goes on, if you are not in that direct line, you will just be bumped further down. And Meghan, I guess, didn't understand that or just couldn't accept it. But here's the thing. When you marry into the royal family, there are certain expectations thrust upon you. And if you decide for yourself that you cannot do that, then don't marry in. Simple as that. And I'm sure it was explained to her multiple times. And I'm sure she was told, hey, you need to let Harry go first. Did she ever let him go first? Not really. She either tapped him on the arm one time and so that he could let her go ahead, or most specifically and most egregiously in many ways, she went and introduced herself first to the King of Morocco rather than Harry on an official visit. I cannot even begin to explain to you the massive faux pas that was. I know some people think, oh, people got upset, she shut her own car door. That doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's mostly actually a security issue. It's a danger for her to do that. That's why royals mostly do not do that. But the big issue was when she goes and greets people in front of him. And she thinks, I think to a certain extent, obviously, that she's probably a bit smarter than him. She's a bit more confident in him. And that might be perfectly well and good, but that doesn't matter. It matters that he is the blood prince and you are not. I know that's harsh. And yes, every child within the royal family, every person on earth is an individual being created in the eyes of God. All of us have a intrinsic value that is unavoidable. But when it comes to royalty, that intrinsic value is still there for you individually as a human being. But when it comes to the hierarchy of the monarchy, that's not the same. And blood also matters as well. This is a brief clip from the recent state visit between Sweden and Denmark, and you'll notice that the two blood royals walk ahead of their respective partners. Mary and Daniel are behind, Frederick and Crown Princess Victoria are up front. That is because the two of them are the blood royal, the King of Denmark, the future Queen of Sweden, and the other two are their spouses. Even when they get on the ship, Frederick goes first, followed by Mary. Hierarchy, they are the king and queen. Next comes Victoria as a blood royal crown princess, followed by her husband, Prince Daniel. That is how royalty works. And if Meghan Markle could not abide by that, she should have not have married in. If you can't do the job, don't do it. And this was this thing where they were apparently told, well, if Meghan Markle still continues to act or wants to act, we'll support that. And Harry and Meghan said, no, we don't want to. We want to be working royals. Well, that may have been a total and complete lie in many ways. And that is, I think, totally and completely bad. It was a really bad mistake for them to make, to kind of fake it and say, oh, no, 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 we want to be working royals. When in reality, Meghan Markle wanted to use being a royal as a personal promotional machine. And then when that really didn't work out, or when there were roadblocks in her way, all of a sudden it's like, well, I want to leave now. Well, then you never should have done it in the first place. Again, the order of everything was on front of you. All the cards were on the table. You know where you stood. You 100% knew where you stood. This is not a competition. This is not confusing. You are the one who's making it difficult. And even when she was a royal, she was actually trying to use an event at the Lion King and utilizing Harry to promote her to Disney for voiceover work. Again, I cannot even tell you how bad that looks. And if she really didn't want to be a working royal, if she didn't want to abide by the regulations and guidelines that are contained within the royal family, you can still marry Harry, of course. But you know what? Say, we don't want to be working royals. I still want to be an actress in California. And the royal family would have been, that is perfectly fine, because at some point, they probably would have been ushered out anyways. They probably would have been slowly faded out. And it would have taken a while, but they were definitely going to always play second fiddle. And if you can't play second fiddle, I don't know what else to tell you, because it ain't going to change. And I feel like in some ways, Meghan Markle thought, well, if I just play my cards right, everything will change. That's not how this world works. And if you are a smart, intelligent adult, you would probably be able to figure that out. So, number 3 mistake is thinking that she could spin all of her PR stories and that everybody would believe everything she says at face value. Meghan Markle, let's take the example, the dish soap story. The story is, according to Meghan Markle, which she has told numerous times because apparently she has achieved nothing else in her life, is that at the age of like 11, there was this dish soap commercial that was very sexist. And for some reason, they were watching it in school. And the boys teased her about it. And she decided, you know what? I'm going to write a letter. And because of her individual letter, a nameless child in California, the multi-million-dollar ad campaign was changed. Now, to fully believe that story, you have to believe in Santa Claus, because it doesn't make any sense. A massive company is not going to change a multi-million-dollar ad campaign because of one single child. They will never, ever do that. Not to mention the fact, if they did, they would probably promote the child, which they never did. P&G has never even provided Meghan Markle's letter to the public because I don't think they have it, because it does not exist. I mean, it probably does, but they probably shredded it like they shredded every other letter. Now, there's been reports that this was actually part of a group project for her school, which makes sense. It also makes sense that perhaps millions of people across the United States also complained about that commercial. And let's see, what do I believe more? That millions upon millions of people, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of people in the United States complained about a commercial and got it changed, or that one single child in California who nobody knew who she was happened to change that commercial. I think logic would dictate It's the former, not the latter. And Meghan Markle has spun a lot of these kind of stories, that she worked on Skid Row, that she's so charitable, that she went and, she went from the refugee camps in Africa or something to the red carpets of Hollywood and all these sorts of things. And she spins all these tales. And the thing was, at the time when she was an actress on Suits, absolutely nobody cared about it because they did not care enough to double check it. They just took her at face value. But things change when you enter in the British monarchy because guess what? At least part of your staff salary and your life is paid for by taxpayers, especially when you are going on multi-million dollar tours in, let's say, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Tonga. There you go. Remembered them all. And when those kind of things happen, guess what? Everybody's going to pour over almost every detail of your life. Why? Because now they're paying for you. And so when you say something like Meghan Markle said in South Africa that nobody asks me if I'm okay, people are going to go, well, aren't there people in poverty like right next to you? Aren't there areas in this country that are incredibly impoverished? Why are you complaining about your lot in life? Or the Oprah Winfrey interview where she spun some pretty tall tales like that she got married a couple of days with Harry before the wedding, that the Archbishop of Canterbury to do that. And he had to deny it because it was fake. Even Harry looked guilty in the video. Like, Meghan, if you can't even get Harry on the same page with you on this, don't spin a lie like that. Just don't spin it because it doesn't make any sense. Or, strongly insinuating that her children were not given titles because of their skin color, which was completely false because they were not entitled to titles because although they were the great grandchildren of the monarch, they were not the grandchildren of the monarch at the time. And because of that, and because they are further down in the line of succession, they were not able to receive titles. She also tied it to his security, which is completely false. Not all royals with titles get 24/7 security. Only the main ones do, like Charles and Camilla, Catherine and William, and their children. They will get the full-time security. Harry and Meghan and Archie at some point would have been slowly whittled away from that. Why? Because they're not as important. Had nothing to do with skin color and everything to do with the monarchy slimming down and their constitutional irrelevancy. That is the reason why. But she spun it in the most malicious way possible. And she also talked about how well Catherine made her cry, even though every single story in the world that we have about the Catherine crying incidents all say it was Meghan who made Catherine cry or Meghan who was disrespectful or disparaging to one of Catherine's employees. It ended up in a bust up. Something happened. One of the stories is, which I sort of kind of believe now, is that Meghan and her friend Jessica Mulroney were somehow making fun of Charlotte because Charlotte's dress didn't fit and complained that she was fat when she was 3. And they had to rush and redo that dress, which you can tell because in pictures, the hem is horrific. It is horrifically bad. Harry even basically confirms this in his book, talking about how Catherine was upset that Charlotte's dress was a mess a couple of the days before the wedding. Catherine, who was also postpartum a couple weeks from giving birth to Louis. So I can imagine Catherine's more likely the one to cry. So again, all these things raise a lot of serious questions. And Meghan Markle spins this stuff and then tries to amend it over time, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And that is because, again, when you enter into this upper echelon, which is in the British monarchy, you need to stop trying to spin the PR BS, which Meghan Markle has always wanted. Again, she has always put a lot of emphasis on PR. A lot of emphasis on PR. And yes, PR is good. But PR doesn't alleviate you actually doing certain things. It doesn't mean that people won't poke holes in your story anymore. Yes, you could do that when you were young and nobody cared who you were and what you had done before, but you're in the big leagues now, honey. You cannot spin false narratives anymore because people are going to poke holes in everything. And there are so many things, guys, that I haven't even covered, but there are just so many false narratives that she tried to promote that just didn't work because you could poke a hole instantly in it and watch the balloon deflate because she's so obsessed with her image. She sort of, and this is my other mistake that Meghan has made, is she lacks authenticity and doesn't know how to achieve it. We've seen this time and time again. And if you're counting, we're at number 4. And I think this is really, really hurting her now as she's trying to be an influencer again. Because what has happened is that Meghan Markle, in addition to jumping into this world of Hollywood without really the necessary experience to do what she's attempting to do, What Meghan Markle is also being is about 10 years behind the times. Meghan Markle is approaching American Riviera Orchard like she did the TIG back in 2014. She is so behind the times because what is selling anymore is not the perfect Instagram image that Meghan Markle always wants to portray. Because that goes in line with what I said about, the BS stories and everything that she creates, and how sometimes she either makes up or greatly exaggerates stories in order to make them sound better. No, no, no. We are talking about Meghan Markle's just obsessive need to curate an image. And yes, of course, she needs to do that. Any famous person does. But what sells now is not the fake Instagram veneer that probably sold about 10 years ago, because we all know it's fake now. We all know it's fake. And yes, we still want to see pretty pictures and we want to see some great outfits and everything. But I think social media in a lot of ways now is moving more towards authenticity. You want to see authentic people, authentic actions. You don't want to see something that's inauthentic and so fake that it just screams that. You want authenticity. And Meghan Markle just can't seem to do that because she is so contrived. She can't really be herself in many ways. And then again, is a huge mistake and something that's continuing to plague her. There was like a blind item about the recent television show she's trying to do with like the cooking and everything with American Riviera Orchard, and how she comes across as wildly inauthentic, which doesn't surprise me. It's because she's always been very, very contrived. She's lacked that authenticity chip, as you might say. And because of that, I think it's going to make it increasingly harder for her to get ahead or to make achievements, is because she's lacking that element of authenticity. And those people who already love her don't care that she's not authentic. They don't care at all. But the people she needs to win over, they care about that. And if they can't see the real Meghan, then they're just not going to like anything that she does. Because I've always said, and I've said this at least a couple times now, that if Meghan Markle just went to the public and said, you know what? I just want to be famous and as rich as humanly possible. That is my motivation. It's not really anything else. I don't really have these grand ambitions or anything. I just want to be rich. I'd say at least like, okay, at least you're being sort of honest with us. She tries to mask everything she does in this element of charity, and it just is sort of ringing hollow and just not working. And if she was more authentic in what she was attempting to do, you could even say the Nigerian trip. What was the point of that, really? Because they didn't really promote the Invictus Games very well. It was a lot about Meghan Markle's heritage. And we have these reports now as well that they spent time with criminals, various criminals, one on the run, I think both of them on the run from the United States or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, so then what was the true point of this trip? Was it to really promote the Invictus Games and Archwell, or was it really to promote yourselves and to make money? If it was those two things, the latter two things, they should have done that. They should have been clear about that rather than saying, oh no, we're just doing this all for charity, when that really wasn't the purpose. And again, I think because social media has shifted and because she hasn't shifted it with it, she's still in this TIG mindset from 2014. She's going to fail with American Riviera Orchard, which she's already doing, because she has lost that critical key of social media. She's so behind the times and social media changes so quickly that she's completely and totally out of luck there. And so it'll be interesting to see if she can ever re-achieve that. It'll be really interesting because she's already proven that I mean, again, guys, not to be rude, but to be so behind what everybody else is doing it's just crazy to me when it comes to American Riviera Orchard. It's so poorly managed. It's absolutely incredible that we've had 9 or 10, it'll be 10 weeks this week, no information on it. No information on it. And so another mistake Meghan Markle made is that she way overshot her capabilities. So what I mean is that Meghan Markle, she promotes herself so much and portrays herself as this great achiever. But the woman lost probably 15 plus million dollars that she could have gotten from Spotify if she could create a good podcast and if she could get her husband to do the same. Upwards of 10 to 15 million easy that they lost because she can't. And that also goes back to the authenticity. You want to hear fake? Listen to archetypes. Listen to archetypes. That thing is so fake. It's nails on the chalkboard fake. You can just feel the scripted laugh and pauses. Like you can feel them. I mean, I think I put it on at higher speeds just to get through it. It was so slow at times because she's drawing things out. She's trying to make, and the show itself was so contrived that, I mean, it took 20 producers to make it when it should have taken 3. I mean, I do all this myself. I do the video. I got a new mic because my other one, I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know if it's the Rodecaster or the microphone, whatever. That's another talk for another day. But I got this new one to try. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this all myself and trying to figure this out. I don't know what I'm doing. She has an entire podcast studio apparently built in her home, and she still can't do a podcast. That's insane. That is insane. That is incompetence to the highest degree. And yes, obviously, as well, sometimes things are harder than others, but she has shot way beyond what she was always capable of doing. She overshot, she oversold, she overdid everything. Because let's be honest, before Harry, Meghan Markle was a mediocre actress who had only one notable role, which was a small supporting role on a long running drama. She was not the favorite character. Some people hated her character, is my understanding, even before Harry. They didn't like her. I think they thought she was like whiny or something. I can't quite remember. And she did a couple of other things. I've seen them. They are bad. That is not a dislike of Meghan. She was simply not a great actress. And so she had gone through the life that she had on Suits, and that probably was going to be about the end of her career, really. Because she was aging out of that sex pot role. She can't play that forever. And so because of that, because there's just only so many places that she can go. And so she decided when she left the royal family with Harry, oh, we're going to make this. I'm going to do the things I always wanted to do with Hollywood. I am going to make this great couple of TV series that we're going to be producers and write all these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, she couldn't bring home the bacon. She can't do it. And even their new shows now have production partners they didn't have before. Do you know why? I'm going to bet you bottom to dollar. Netflix said, okay, we'll take these, but you need production partners. And you know what that means? That they get less on the back end because they need people to bring things through fruition. Because the only thing they've had that has done well besides Harry's book is their Harry and Meghan documentary, which was always going to do well because it had dirt on the royal family, brought an inside light into the royal family, something people didn't get. So of course that thing was going to sell well. Their two other things, Live to Lead, Heart of Invictus, both bombed. Live to Lead especially bombed. I didn't even watch that. It was so like non-existent. So Harry and Meghan have a lot of challenges going forward, and she just can't seem to do this. They like bought the rights to this book or whatever. Well, Netflix technically owns the right, and they're not even working on it. It'll be interesting to see whether or not that goes through or not, or Netflix is like, we'll give it to somebody else who can actually do this stuff because you guys can't do this. Harry himself, I think especially, is way out of his depth here. They both are in many ways, but Harry especially. And so this was never going to work. And she should have kept it smaller, done something different. I don't know. I don't want to say because I don't really know. But all of this could have been avoided with some decent planning and not going so far outside what you could actually achieve and accomplish. And the other bad mistake is because of all these things together, overblowing their love, taking advantage of the monarchy, going way beyond her capabilities, all the random stories and everything, and the lack of authenticity. At the end of the day, Harry and Meghan are now so overexposed, they have become highly disliked. Every time there's a new poll out about the British monarchy and popularity, Harry and Meghan are in the bottom 3. Always spot number 3 and 2. Andrew's always at the very bottom. But up above him is Meghan, and then there's Harry. Why? They're so overexposed. Because the thing is, Meghan Markle loves PR. And again, she has funneled a lot of her money, I think, over the years into PR and into Sunshine Sachs. Because of that, she overhyped the media machine to such an extent, it keeps going even when she's not feeding it anymore. Because my theory is that Meghan Markle fed a lot of stories in the beginning. Because this is a woman who has always wanted this. Nothing wrong with that. But at least admit this is what you've always wanted, is everybody paying attention to you. Because again, she fed the media nugget by showing this picture of cuddling bananas right after the news of her and Harry broke. It was like feeding the media. She also put her dog in a Union Jack sweater, trying to and there was this guy in one of the pictures that maybe looked like Harry. She kept trying to trickle these little clues in her Instagram, hoping people would catch on to them, hoping they would blow up and everything, because I think she was so desperate for the attention. And then, even when things began and everything, she was sending a lot of stories to the press. Now, I think at some point, sending the stories to the press somewhat diminished over time. But the problem is, once you start that little roll down the hill, it's really, really hard to stop it. And because of that, everything she does is covered. And yes, I think she loves it because she is definitely a narcissist. There was actually an article on the Daily Mail about female narcissists. And I was looking through some of them bullet points. I was like, Meghan Markle, yep, 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 yep. And because of that, she sort of loves it. But at the same time, too, it's become so much. They're regurgitating stories in the media all the time about Harry and Meghan. All the time they're regurgitating stories. They go on and on and on and on. That's because, though, Harry and Meghan fed the beast first. And when you feed the beast just wants more. And if you're not giving it to them, somebody else will. And because of that, and because negativity about them sells a lot more than positivity, guess what? Most of the stories are going to be negative. That's how this works. So Harry and Meghan have made massive mistakes, but especially Meghan, because looking at all these things together, why do I think this was the worst mistake Meghan Markle made? Looking at all those factors, I think Meghan Markle would have been so much better off if she had dated Harry and then waited for the Suits resurgence to happen. Now, she couldn't have known this, but if her really focus was fame and fortune, that's, a huge part of maybe why she dated and married Harry. If she had not done that, she'd gotten a little boost from dating him, so people knew who she was. Maybe she got some more acting roles, and then all of a sudden, everybody's watching Suits, and guess what? Everybody wants to call Meghan Markle. Everybody wants to call her because she's part of that show. Hello, guys. Editing Brittany here, real quick, because I forgot to add one other caveat, which Wendy, one of my followers, thankfully reminded me of. And that is when it comes to Meghan and Suits. Yes, of course, 100% she helped raise the profile of that show. 1,000%. Not taking that away from her whatsoever. However, I would also argue that the reason Suits did so well was not because of Meghan, because let's be honest, she was a supporting character. Yes, she would have gained the curiosity, but not the long-term viewership it seemed to have on Netflix. The reason Suits has its resurgence is just like the reason why Reba recently had some pretty good success on Netflix, which is a show that ended like 15 years ago or something like that. And that is because Suits came about on Netflix in a time where Hollywood just can't seem to produce anything anybody wants to watch. And so we are desperate for good content. So people are mining old IPs, not just the studios, because they're redoing things all the time, but us as the audience, we are mining shows that were well before our time. Because of Hollywood's inability, I think, to produce good content, I watched the entirety of Frasier. I watched Golden Girls. TV shows that were way before my time. And I watched those because I needed something to watch. And shows from that time period, quite frankly, are better than what we got now. So Suits resurgence doesn't necessarily have to do with Meghan. She was definitely a factor, but it's because Hollywood is so bad right now at producing decent content. We look to older content to fill that need for television shows. It's also helpful when something has an ending, because I feel like there's nothing worse than a television show that gives you this great premise and then totally botches the ending. All of you who watch Game of Thrones, you know what I'm talking about. I haven't actually watched Game of Thrones. I watched part of the first season and not the end, but that show completely failed and botched its landing to such an extent that people can't really watch it. But the nice thing is, with some of these older shows, they actually did pretty well until the end. And so you can watch a fulfilled show. Yes, people dipped out of Suits as the seasons got on, and we saw that via the Netflix information. But people watch Suits because they needed something good. If Hollywood didn't take the message that us Americans and the rest of the world just want decent television shows that don't really have a message, that are just entertaining, then they've completely missed the message of Suits and so many other shows that have had a resurgence recently. It's not because we are all so desperate to watch these old shows. No, it's just none of us want to watch the new ones. So just wanted to put that out there real quick. So now back to the main video. And maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I think she would have gotten her foot in so many more doors after the Netflix resurgence. And she could have still spun her PR media narratives because, again, being a celebrity is not the same thing as being royalty. I guess that should have been another mistake thinking royalty is like celebrity. That's probably better than what I but anyways, that she could probably still spin the same stories and nobody would care. I mean, maybe they would look into it a little bit more, but nobody would care enough because, hey, you're just Meghan Markle from Suits. Nobody really cares. So you can do whatever you want. She might have been part of the Suits rewatch podcast, and rewatch podcasts are so popular right now. She could have done more things. It could have opened actually a lot more doors to her in sort of the twilight years, I think, of what it would have been her career, because she's not a good enough actress, I think, to really go on much beyond Suits. There might have been a reboot. She could have gotten attached to that. Like so many, many, many different things. But instead, she married Harry. And yes, she got two beautiful children out of it. And yes, maybe their marriage is the thing dreams are made of. I kind of highly doubt that because, again, I kind of stuff like that just hits me wrong. But the consequence of that is that people didn't believe her BS stories as much anymore. People saw that she lacked authenticity and she was too contrived. She became overexposed and highly, highly disliked. And because of that, it's going to be incredibly hard for her to succeed in the future. Because, yes, there are a lot of people on the fence, but I've never really met that many people who actually like Meghan Markle. Most of the people I know in my community don't like her. And so I just think it's going to be incredibly hard for her going forwards because if people don't know who you are, you can craft something, a narrative that will fit them and that they'll like. But the problem is, once everybody knows pretty much everything about you, especially as much as Harry and Meghan have spilled about their private lives, all of a sudden people know instantly, yeah, I dislike you. And you can't unring that bell. And so, considering Meghan Markle, she walked down to the bells ringing at St. George's Chapel, I can't help but wonder 6 years on, especially again with Suits becoming so popular, if she ever thinks to herself and wonders, huh, I wonder if my life would have been a bit easier if I didn't marry Harry. So, guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of my theories. I would love to get your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. These were, again, all just my thoughts. I so appreciate you, and I shall see you soon. Bye.